In the far reaches of the Orion expanse, one rule had survived every empire, every war, and every civilization. Never answer an unknown distress signal. For the Galactic Coalition, it wasn't just advice, it was law. Thousands of ships had vanished over the centuries after responding to mysterious emergency broadcasts. Entire rescue fleets disappeared without leaving a single wreck behind. The galaxy eventually accepted a brutal truth. Some distress calls weren't cries for help. They were bait. Deep inside the Crimson Nebula known as the Silent Veil, a notorious predator species called the Vrax Syndicate had perfected this strategy. Their ships hid behind radiation clouds. They transmitted perfectly forged emergency signals. Then, when compassionate civilizations arrived to help, the Vrax attacked without mercy. They stripped ships for technology, enslaved survivors, and erased every trace. The trap had never failed. Until one ordinary transmission reached an unexpected destination. Planet Earth. Inside Earth's United Fleet Command, warning alarms echoed across the operations center. A weak alien signal had entered human space. Static filled the speakers. Then a trembling voice emerged. Emergency, civilian vessel under attack. Requesting immediate rescue, coordinates attached. The room fell silent. Some officers exchanged nervous looks. Others immediately suspected an ambush. Admiral Elias Carter folded his arms. Probability? An intelligence officer answered instantly. 98% chance it's fake. Another officer added, no registered civilization has survived that region for decades. The room expected only one response. Ignore it. Delete the transmission. Move on. Instead, Admiral Carter smiled. So, they're inviting us. Several officers looked confused. One cautiously asked, Sir, you believe it's a trap? I know it's a trap. Then why go? The Admiral looked toward the massive star map glowing above the command table. Because someone arrogant enough to fake a distress call is also arrogant enough to think they know who will answer. A slow grin spread across several veteran commanders. They understood exactly what he meant. Humanity wasn't planning a rescue mission. They were planning a hunting expedition. Far away, hidden inside the Silent Veil, Vrax Commander Zorvac watched sensor displays with confidence. The signal has been active for 12 hours. Any response? One technician hissed happily. Yes, Commander. A single ship is approaching. The bridge erupted with cruel laughter. Only one ship. Perfect. Easy prey. Zorvac leaned back on his throne. Prepare boarding teams. This species will become today's harvest. No one on the bridge noticed one tiny detail. The approaching vessel wasn't transmitting military codes. It wasn't armed like a battleship. It looked old. Exactly the kind of ship desperate enough to answer a distress call. And that was exactly what humanity wanted them to believe. The lone human vessel drifted silently through the crimson clouds of the Silent Veil. Its engines burned at minimal power, its hull scarred with fake battle damage, and its distress beacons flickered as though barely operational. To every sensor aboard the Vrax flagship, it looked exactly like an exhausted civilian rescue ship. Commander Zorvac smiled. Pathetic. Scan for hidden escorts. The sensor officer worked quickly before shaking his head. No warships detected. No stealth signatures. No fleet formations. Another officer added, life signs indicate fewer than 50 humans on board. The bridge erupted in laughter. Only 50? This will be over in minutes. Zorvac stood from his command throne. Disable their engines. I want the ship intact. Blue ion lances shot across the darkness, striking the human vessel with perfect precision. Sparks exploded across its hull, and the ship appeared to lose power immediately. On Vrax scanners, everything looked exactly as planned. The human captain transmitted an emergency message. We've lost propulsion. We surrender. Please don't fire. Zorvac couldn't hide his satisfaction. Cowards. He activated the fleet-wide channel. Prepare boarding parties. Leave enough survivors to sell. Dozens of assault craft detached from the hidden Vrax fleet and raced toward the drifting human ship. Inside the vessel, however, the atmosphere couldn't have been more different. There was no panic, no fear, no desperate crew. Instead, Marines calmly checked their weapons while engineers monitored holographic displays. Every corridor had been reinforced. Hidden blast doors waited behind ordinary-looking walls. Automated defense systems remained powered down, invisible to enemy scans. Captain Maya Reynolds looked around the command deck. Boarding countdown? 3 minutes, an officer replied. She nodded. Excellent. Another crew member grinned. Permission to activate Phase 1 when they're inside? Captain Reynolds smiled. Not yet. Let every single pirate board. If they've come this far, they deserve the full tour. Laughter spread across the bridge. Far beyond the drifting ship, something else moved through the darkness. Hundreds of millions of kilometers away, silent objects emerged from hyperspace. No lights, no broadcasts, no engine flares. Entire human battle groups had arrived under advanced stealth fields, positioning themselves around the nebula like hunters surrounding prey. Every battleship remained invisible. Every weapon stayed cold. They weren't here to rescue anyone. They were waiting for one command. Back aboard the Vrax assault craft, boarding leader Krass slammed a claw against the airlock. Prepare breaching charges. The explosive detonated with a deafening roar. The airlock door collapsed inward. The pirates stormed into the corridor, weapons raised, expecting terrified civilians. Instead, the hallway was completely empty. Too quiet. Krass narrowed his eyes. This doesn't feel right. Before anyone could react, the corridor doors sealed shut behind them. Heavy steel barriers slammed into place ahead. Red warning lights illuminated the passage. Then a calm human voice echoed through hidden speakers. Welcome aboard. The tour begins now. The red emergency lights pulsed through the narrow corridor as the Vrax boarding party froze in place. Commander Krass swung his plasma rifle toward the sealed blast door. Open it. No response. He fired. The bolt struck the reinforced alloy with a violent flash, but the door didn't even glow. Another pirate tried hacking the control panel. Nothing. Every system was dead to them. Then the calm human voice returned. Attention, unauthorized visitors. You have illegally boarded a United Earth Fleet vessel. You are now participating in a live combat exercise. A moment of silence followed. Then one Vrax pirate laughed. A combat exercise? Before anyone else could react, the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the corridor. The Vrax activated their helmet optics, expecting an easy fight. Instead, their displays filled with static. Commander, my scanners are blind. I've lost thermal imaging. I can't identify targets. Krass growled. Stay together. Too late. A metallic clang echoed from somewhere ahead. Then another. Then footsteps. Slow. Measured. Getting closer. One nervous pirate fired wildly into the darkness. The plasma bolts illuminated the corridor for only a split second. Just long enough for everyone to see a massive armored figure standing motionless at the far end. The lights vanished again. Did you see that? One pirate whispered. No one answered. The footsteps continued. Closer. Closer. A single gunshot cracked through the darkness. One Vrax warrior collapsed instantly. Before anyone could locate the shooter, another shot echoed. A second pirate fell. Panic spread through the squad. They're everywhere. No, they're controlling the battlefield. Hidden doors slid open along the walls. Human Marines emerged with terrifying precision, firing only once before disappearing again. Every shot found its target. Every movement had been rehearsed. Within seconds, half the boarding force lay unconscious or dead. Krass roared and charged forward, smashing through a maintenance hatch. As he entered the next chamber, he stopped cold. It wasn't an engine room. It was an arena. Dozens of human soldiers stood waiting in complete silence. Their black combat armor reflected the flashing red lights. Not one of them had raised a weapon. At their center stood Captain Maya Reynolds. She removed her helmet and looked directly at the Vrak's commander. "So, you're the ones who've been hunting rescue ships." Crass bared his fangs. "You've trapped us." Captain Reynolds smiled. "No. You walked into the trap." She tapped a control on her wrist. Instantly, every display aboard the Vrak's flagship lit up with a single transmission. A live video feed. Commander Zorvac watched in horror as his elite boarding force stood completely surrounded. Then the camera pulled back. Farther. Farther still. The Crimson Nebula faded from view. And suddenly, hundreds of colossal human warships shimmered into existence from stealth, forming a perfect sphere around the entire Vrak's fleet. The pirates hadn't captured one helpless ship. They had revealed the location of their entire hidden armada. Admiral Elias Carter appeared on every Vrak screen. His expression was calm. "You used a fake distress call to lure victims." He paused. "We used one to find you." The silence across the Vrak's fleet was absolute. They finally understood. The prey had never been prey at all. Silence gripped every bridge across the Vrak's fleet. For the first time in generations, the hunters had nowhere to run. Commander Zorvac stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Hundreds of human warships surrounded the nebula in perfect formation. Every escape corridor had been sealed. Every hyperspace lane was blocked. His sensor officer spoke with a trembling voice. "Commander, we're detecting over 3,000 weapons locks." Another officer interrupted. "Correction. They're not aiming at individual ships. They've locked onto our entire fleet." A cold shiver spread across the bridge. No civilization had ever outmaneuvered the Vraks. No one had ever found their hidden base. Until now. A transmission from Admiral Elias Carter echoed through every pirate vessel. "You have attacked medical ships. You have destroyed rescue missions. You have enslaved civilians from more than 40 star systems." He paused, letting the words sink in. "For decades, the galaxy believed your fleet was invisible. It wasn't. You were simply waiting for someone patient enough to hunt the hunters." The Admiral folded his hands behind his back. "Today, that someone arrived." Desperate, Zorvac slammed his fist onto the command console. "All ships. Break the encirclement. Fire everything." Hundreds of Vrak's cannons erupted at once. The darkness of space exploded into rivers of plasma, missiles, and particle beams. The barrage raced toward the human fleet. Every human ship activated brilliant blue energy shields. The incoming storm struck like a tidal wave. When the light faded, not a single human vessel had moved. Not one shield had collapsed. The Vrak's bridge fell silent. One frightened officer whispered, "They didn't even return fire." Zorvac growled, "Why?" As if answering his question, Admiral Carter's face appeared once more. "Because this battle ended the moment you boarded our ship." He raised one hand. "Fleet Command. Execute Operation Lighthouse." Across the human armada, thousands of synchronized weapons unfolded. These weren't ordinary cannons. Massive graviton arrays locked onto the pirate fleet. Instead of firing explosive shells, they unleashed invisible waves of gravitational force. One by one, Vrak's engines shut down. Weapon systems overloaded. Targeting computers failed. Entire cruisers drifted helplessly through space. Without destroying a single ship, humanity had stripped the Vraks of their ability to fight. Captain Maya Reynolds watched the tactical map from aboard the bait ship. "Status." An officer smiled. "Enemy fleet immobilized. Boarding team secured. 0 civilian casualties." She nodded. "Exactly as planned." Back on the Vrak's flagship, alarms screamed from every console. "No propulsion. We've lost weapons. Life support remains operational." Zorvac stared at the frozen human fleet outside his viewport. They hadn't come seeking revenge. They had come seeking justice. And the most terrifying part? They had shown enough confidence to defeat an entire pirate empire without annihilating it. For the first time in his life, Commander Zorvac felt something he had never allowed his victims to feel. Helplessness. The battlefield had fallen silent. Where thousands of weapons had once threatened innocent travelers, the Vrax fleet now drifted powerless through the stars. No explosions. No desperate last stand. Only the quiet hum of human patrol ships moving methodically between the immobilized pirate vessels. Boarding teams secured bridge after bridge without resistance. Every prisoner was catalogued. Every stolen database was copied. Every slave-holding cell was opened. Across dozens of captured ships, beings from hundreds of worlds stepped into freedom for the first time in years. Some cried. Some stood in stunned silence. Others simply stared at the humans who had arrived not as conquerors, but as liberators. On the bridge of the Vrax flagship, Commander Zorvax stood in magnetic restraints before Admiral Elias Carter. The pirate leader lifted his head. "Why didn't you destroy us?" "You had every opportunity." Admiral Carter looked through the viewport at the countless stars. "Because fear doesn't end piracy. Justice does." Zorvac frowned. "You think imprisoning us changes anything?" The Admiral turned toward him. "No. But exposing you to the entire galaxy will." With a single command, every screen aboard every coalition world came alive. The footage was undeniable. The fake distress broadcasts. The ambushes. The slave markets. The stolen technology. And finally, the complete defeat of the Vrax Syndicate. For the first time in history, the galaxy saw the monsters hiding behind the shadows. And they also saw who had ended their reign. Days later, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered in orbit around Earth. Many had lost families to the Vrax. Many had searched for answers for decades. Now they had closure. An elderly ambassador approached Admiral Carter. "We misjudged humanity. We believed compassion made your species weak." The Admiral smiled faintly. "Compassion is exactly what brought us here." He looked toward the rescued civilians boarding medical ships. "We answered what appeared to be a cry for help. The difference is, we expected the trap. And we refused to let others become its next victims." The ambassador bowed his head in respect. Months later, a new emergency protocol spread across known space. Every distress signal would now be answered, not by isolated rescue ships, but by coordinated fleets working together. The age of easy ambushes was over. Pirates vanished from major trade routes. Rescue missions resumed. Hope returned to the stars. Before retiring, Admiral Carter recorded one final message that would be taught in every military academy across the galaxy. It was only one sentence. "Never mistake humanity's kindness for weakness, because when we answer a call for help, we don't come alone." And from that day forward, no pirate, empire, or warlord ever again dared to broadcast a fake distress call. Because the galaxy had learned a lesson written among the stars. The greatest mistake an enemy could make was believing humanity would stop being human.